Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/teacherrecharge. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. I'm Fred Kepp. This is my jazz voice, and you're listening to the Teacher Recharge. Let's keep it smooth and keep it rolling. Top of the morning to you. Hope your Monday is off to a wonderful start. I don't always guarantee things, but I will guarantee you this. If you listen to today's interview, your Monday is going to get that much better, because I have in the studio for this interview my good friend Dylan Gruntzel, who's entering his third year as the assistant coach for the Newman University women's soccer program. In 2017, the Jets put together their best season in their Division II era, going 11-6-2 overall and 8-4-2 in conference play, which was a program record for wins in each of those categories. He's also the head coach at Wichita East High School for the women's soccer program. He won Coach of the Year this past year, and he took his girls to sub-state this last year, and the year before he took them to the state tournament. So obviously he knows a little bit about what he's talking about. He's here to spread that knowledge with us, and it is just a wonderful interview. He gives lots of wisdom nuggets in here, so I think you're going to enjoy it. So without further ado, here is the interview with Dylan Gruntzel. Enjoy! Hello, we are here in the studio today with none other than a very good friend of mine, Dylan Gruntzel. He is the head coach at East High for the girls soccer program, and he's an assistant at Newman University here in Wichita, Kansas. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. All right, so what is something that you do to kickstart your week? Like, how do you go into every single week? Is there any rituals? Is there anything you like to do?
I actually got something from, a podcast I used to listen to, is putting together 5 things you want to accomplish for the day. And you just use those each day. Instead of a weekly thing, it's more of a daily thing. Try to accomplish just 5 things. You can use 3, you can do 4, but again, no more than 5. So we put down those and try to do those every day. So, for example, can I go to the gym today? And then build off that. So after that, after I make it a habit, and then I can put something else on there. So it's about trying to do things and accomplish things throughout the day and to build them in good habits.
Yep. So you start every Monday like that, but do you do that every single day then? Are you bringing in 5 things a day?
Yep. 5 things a day. It could be the same thing.
What a baller.
It could be you're trying to build them into a habit.
Yeah.
So can I do this same thing, and then where it gets to a point where I'm just naturally doing it and I don't have to write it down and make it a goal. Like, I'm already doing it as a goal.
Right. How many times does it take to make something a habit? Like, what is that, like 18? I don't know.
It's some things longer than the others. Cause it's like, when you're a little kid, you hated brushing your teeth, but now you do it as a habit every day.
Yeah.
It's just what you build. And so for some people, it's easy to go to the gym every day. Like, that's a habit. For me, it's a little bit tougher. So I have to put it down there. It takes a little bit longer. But, if I say, okay, I want to eat something healthy for lunch, okay, and make sure it's good for me, that is a little bit easier for me to do. I love eating. I mean, everybody loves food. So,
amen, brother.
So I think it just varies on what you're trying to accomplish. If there's a goal that's a little harder to attain, it's going to take a little bit more time because you got to put a little bit more work into it.
Definitely. What podcast was that from? Do you know? Do you remember that?
The MFCEO by Andy Frisella.
Okay.
And I probably can't tell you what the MF off the CEO.
So after you're done listening to this podcast, go check that one out. But only after you listen to this podcast. Because if you don't listen to this podcast, then I'm gonna cry, and that's never a good thing. Next thing I want to ask is, what is something that you do that other coaches or other teachers aren't doing? It's kind of an interesting perspective this week because you are a coach, and most of the people that are listening to this podcast are teachers. I think that coaches are teachers, though, in general, which is, I consider myself a teacher, even though I'm a coach. What's something that you do that others don't? How could they maybe even translate that to the classroom?
I think something I do a little bit differently is I try to build my sessions over a little bit more based of common sense in the soccer side of things. The one thing I've learned is everything you got to base it on what the team you have. Okay. Can it be good enough for your team to learn and pick it up quickly? Something that I've been pretty successful with is just putting sessions in that kind of pull out common sense type ideas. Like, for example, this morning I'm training a 9-year-old. Okay. And I say, if I'm facing to the left, which way am I going to run? She says to the left. And I say, if I'm facing to the right, which way am I going to probably run? She says, probably the right. I say, what if I'm running straight at you or facing straight at you? Am I going to go left to right? She's like, I don't know. And so we try to incorporate that into that ideas is because she understood it without even running through the drill. Like, why? Why do we run at a player when we're doing 1v1 attacking? So it's just try to pull out those things, which I think is a little bit different. Like, every coach has their own style, and that's just the style I try to do, is make something that they can incorporate that makes complete sense. Okay? It's just a common sense thing, but they just don't think about it because maybe they've complicated in their mind, or they've had a different coach that does it a different style.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way I try to do it. Okay. Common sense wise, if I run at a player, I can go left or right. If I run to their left, I'm probably going to go left, where they can make it predictable and make me go that way. So I think that's something I really try to incorporate into it.
All right, cool. It's actually interesting talking about Dylan here, because pretty much all of you probably don't know about this, but I was actually the assistant for his girls team this past year. And because of that, I was able to learn a lot from him. I really respect him as a coach and as an educator in general. And that is something that I definitely don't do as well as him, but I have picked up a little bit from him. I love the way that you're able to take a session and really break it down to the bare minimum right there, because that's really what it is. It's saying, okay, you know where you want to get with the session because you designed the session, but how can we take the student or the player and get them there with us, and get them there with us completely to where they're with us. Like, they're not just like confused or anything. Like, they've almost figured it out themselves by the time they get to the end. And that's something that I think you do a fantastic job with, and that I've seen. And that's something that you were just talking about right there. So with that though, how do you think a teacher could possibly utilize that? Like, maybe even in the math classroom or something like that. Like, how could it also be translated to an education setting in a classroom?
I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one. I'd say you just kind of what you talked about is, how a coach builds a session. Again, you're trying to go from simple to something very complex, and then to the game. So I think you have to find a way to apply whatever you're working on, whether it's mathematics or English or science, and how do we make it very simple at the beginning and then progress into making it more complex. I mean, how you do that in each, that's I think if you tell a science teacher, how do I build this from simple to complex, I think they're gonna be like, okay, that makes sense. Or an English teacher or a math teacher, in any whatever field they're in, can you build it from simple and progress into something that's more and more complex as you go? I think they're gonna have a pretty good idea of what you're talking about. To me, it's just, okay, I go from simple, we work on something individual, and then we add players, we add defenders, okay, we add different points that you have to run through. So that's how I know as a coach is how to take it from simple to complex.
I had a 6th grade teacher actually that would take with math actually, and I pat on the back for Fred. I don't think I needed it that much, but for the other kids in the class, because I'm perfect. But what she would do was she would use, cause I'm from Odessa, Texas, which is, I don't want to say, I'm definitely not from the hood or anything, but a lot of the kids that I was in class with we're from some, I would say, some rough situations and stuff. But what she would do with their examples and stuff is she would make them very relatable. So instead of counting apples, they'd be counting Camaros. I'm being so serious though. Like it made it more relatable. It made it more fun for the students. And then you see them you start to see, okay, now they're engaged, which I think is huge, is getting that engagement. And then now we can work up to, okay, this is how you actually do it. This is why you're doing it.
Right.
So,
I think that's, like you said, it's the most important part is how do you make it fun for them?
Right.
Because people want to get better at things that they enjoy.
Right.
Like
exactly.
There's things that I don't enjoy. Like I don't like working on my car. I'm not going to take time to get better at it. So
on your Camaro.
Okay. Yeah. On my Camaro. Exactly. So I think that's how can you relate things that may not be fun, and how do you put a little twist on them to make them fun? In soccer, nobody really likes warming up. Okay, so how do you make warm up fun? Do you have a little game you can add in that incorporates all the movements that you're trying to add in?
Right.
Okay, and now they're having fun and they don't even realize that they're warming up.
Right. Definitely. So. I love it. I love it. All right. So next, I wanted to know, what is something, this is an awesome question. I'm pat on the back for me again, because this is a good question. I really like to ask this, but what is something that you failed at and what was your solution? How did you react to that? Because everybody's human. Everybody fails. It's part of life. But I think how we react really is where the learning comes in. So what is something you failed at and what was your solution?
I'd say when I was a younger coach is understanding how to get a point across in a session. Like how do you build a session for players? And when I was younger as a coach, like I would focus on one topic and then this topic and then this topic and this topic and this topic. And now we've worked on 4 or 5 different ideas. But the players aren't able to focus on one the entire session. Right. And so I think that was tough for them to understand, especially if we're working something tactically, because if we're working on, for instance, building out of the back for 15 minutes, and then we go to attacking in the middle third for 15 minutes, it doesn't give them enough time to understand exactly what you want them to do in 15 minutes. You can just do one activity and then you go to a different activity that doesn't even relate. And so I think that was one of my failures as a younger coach, is that while, yes, we were decently successful, but at the same time, could we have been more? And I think at times, looking back on that, is that I could see players struggling, even though we worked on it. We only worked on it for 15 minutes. So my kind of solution was, I reached out to a mentor of mine, who's actually our head coach at Newman, and Aaron Avila, and he pointed me in the direction of doing coaching education. It's something that I really got involved in. Like I just got back from my premier diploma in Colorado.
Congrats, by the way. That's really cool.
Thank you. And, you get a chance to work with some coaches that have been doing it for decades. Those guys were able to point me in the right direction. And how do you build a session? Okay. This is how you progress. This is why you work on one topic. So the mind for the player understands it and then goes from the simple to the complex. And so now they're able to understand it all the way through to the game.
Yeah, definitely.
And so it gives a better idea. And then we had more success where, we're able to build out of the back constantly. It wasn't just kind of, we got it. And so I think that was failure that I had earlier. And then, now going through coaching education, it opens things up. And now I understand. It's just like a player going through training. So they may not be able to shoot a ball. That's why you train to get better at it. Same thing as a coach is that we may be good at some things, but there's always something we can get better at. If I'm not sure in something, is there a coaching education piece that's available for me that I can take to help me better understand it?
Right.
I think that's what, just in this premier diploma alone, we got to work on basically what the premier diploma is working on different systems and how do you incorporate trapping in a system or pressing in a system, 4-4-2 or a 4-3-3. And so that gave me something different, some piece that I've never worked on. I've never coached pressing in the middle third or pressing in the attacking third. And so like I said, it's just another tool, I guess you can add in the tool chest and work for it going forward. So I think it's a vital piece that I'm glad I was able to ask about 6 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. What I really like about that answer though is the thought of like, as you got a little older, first off, you were really willing to learn more and you wanted to learn more. And then also recognizing that even at the high school level, even at the college level, pretty much you could basically say just human beings. They really can't tackle, we really can't tackle 4 or 5 things in one, hour and a half session. It's not an efficient way. And the person that taught me that is right across from me. So, he's even passing it down to other people, which is awesome. But like, if you think about it, it seems like you're going slower, but you're not because you're getting it done correctly. Right. You're getting it done correctly. And that is so big. Well, hey, I love that answer. Thank you for that. We're going to take a really quick break, thank a sponsor, and we will be right back. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/teacher-recharge. For you, the listeners of the Teacher Recharge podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. I always ask my guest to recommend a book. Dylan, what book would you recommend for people to get?
I'd say a book called Wooden. It's a book I read when I first started coaching because, again, the book is about John Wooden and kind of quotes he's had and kind of how he approached his style of coaching. And if you're unfamiliar with John Wooden, he's one of the most successful coaches probably in any sport ever. Kind of how he was not the loud coach. He was a very kind of a humble man. Quotes that he has that made so much sense. The one that stands out to me most is be quick but don't hurry. It was a quote that I've used numerous times. Is we want you to be fast in what you do, but we don't want you to hurry and rush through it. So yeah.
To download Wooden or any other of over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player, go to audibletrial.com/teacher recharge. Again, that's audibletrial.com/teacher recharge for your free audio book. And we're back. Guess what time it is? It's story time. All right, Dylan. It is the time when we ask our guest to tell us a story, whether it's motivational, whether it's comedic, whether it's jaw-dropping, whether it's sad, whether it's heart-touching, does not matter. Dylan, give us your best story. Here you go.
The best story. I would say it was back in high school. I mean, kind of just, what we've been talking about in the coaching side. And I think it kind of shaped how I am as a coach is when I was a high school player. It's my senior year. And a buddy of mine, a guy named Neil Jawanel, was our center back. Big, tall, goofy guy. I think he was like 6'4", real skinny, skinny as a nail. And we had a coach at the time, a guy named Coach Anderson. He started the program at East. Neil's kind of messing with Coach, just kind of picking on him, right before practice. We're having a good time with it. Kind of laughing, and Neil's really enjoying this. And then Coach Anderson, he's kind of laughing and giggling. He just flinches at Neil. Okay, just does one of those kind of flinch acts like he's going to run at him. And Neil absolutely just falls over. And so it's, it was kind of funny to me and to the rest of the guys that Neil was trying all these things against Coach, and Coach does this one little flinch, and Neil just absolutely falls off his feet. Coach Anderson, older guy, a little bit of a bigger guy. He's a very serious guy at times, but that was kind of the first time we could really see his comedic side. Yeah. It's where he could mess with players. And then throughout the rest of the year, we kind of learned more and more of what type of coach he was. He was definitely a player's coach. Yes, he'd get on our butts about things and make us run, but he was really inside a player's coach. Mm-hmm. And I think just that story alone and seeing how he related to his players so much, while it's funny, it's also a way to see, how he was able to, like I said, relate with players, and it kind of tied into what I do now. I try to relate with my players and have fun, enjoy it. Let's work hard, but let's have fun. I think you definitely have to enjoy what you're doing. And the players have to enjoy it too. You can't just run them into the ground and hope for the best. So
interesting story about Coach Anderson. So I actually never had the pleasure of meeting him, but my first practice or first coaching session at East, I was over the C team boys program last year, and I went in, and at the East grass soccer field, there's a flagpole, because that's where the flagpole is. And then there's, under the flagpole, there's a block, a commemorative, historical marker looking thing. And it has a plaque that has his name on it. And right under that, there's a bunch of bricks, on the ground, laid bricks on the ground. And they're set out in a rectangular shape, and they're a good 6 feet in between, from the base of this statue kind of thing to the end of where the bricks are. And I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, they put a dead guy here. They buried Coach Anderson on the soccer field. So I started asking the boys, I was like, man, is this his grave? Because they had just poured the water, for the end of the day, they had just poured it all over it. And I was like, yo, that's not really respectful. And they're like, oh, no. They just put that there. And I was like, why would they make it look like a grave? That's so messed up.
No.
Oh my gosh. Apparently he's a legendary coach. I mean, not apparently, he definitely is a legendary coach. Apparently he helped, start basically high school soccer in Wichita, which is one of the originals, the OGs, if you will. So.
Yeah, him and about 2 or 3 others were kind of the reason why high school soccer started in Wichita. Yeah. So, it was a pleasure working for him and playing under him. So I got to work with him for 2 years before he passed from lung cancer. So definitely worth it. It was a good start. Like I said, he gave me my first coaching job ever.
Oh,
so,
really?
That was where the start happened. 19 years old.
Hey,
12 years later, I'm still here.
Wow, I love it. Cool. Well, hey, Dylan, we really appreciate you coming into the studio today and talking some life, talking some coaching, talking some teaching, and talking some strategy. If people want to find you or your program, how can they do that?
For myself, I'm on Instagram and Twitter. You can find me there. It's D Gruntzel, Gruntzel on both. And then for my programs, we have East High Soccer, which is Wichita East Girls Soccer. And then there's also Newman. You can find that as well. It's a NU women's soccer.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming today. Remember, if you want to send in any stories or questions or topics that you want to see covered on this podcast, go ahead. Feel free to send them into teacherrechargepodcast@gmail.com. That is teacherrechargepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you, Dylan. And until next time, don't flinch, keep it simple, and achieve. Peace.